Good evening. I'm Cecil McCarthy, a member of the Executive Board of the Association of Foreign Press Correspondents in the United States, and I'm also the director of the journalism program at Hunter College. I'm delighted to welcome you to the 2024 Foreign Press Awards ceremony. We're so happy to hold this event for the first time right here in the National Press Club, a venue steeped in the history of American journalism. Yeah, let's give them a round of applause, National Press Club. We have some amazing people to introduce you to this evening, but before I get to that, I'd like to invite the chairwoman of the AFPC-USA, Nancy Prager-Camel, to join us on stage.
Okay. Clearly, Cecil has better eyesight than I do, so I'm going with glasses. Okay. So, the Association of Foreign Press Correspondents in the United States wishes to thank the partners and the colleagues of the National Press Club, as well as our colleagues and partners in the Committee to Protect Journalists, for being great allies and collaborators. The presence of these two organizations tonight undercuts and demonstrates the importance of unifying voices and combining forces in serving and protecting journalists. On behalf of our community, the Association of Foreign Press Correspondents would like to thank you and thank the partners and supporters who are with us this evening. Your steadfast support, not only this evening, but every single day, strengthens our commitment to serve the community of foreign correspondents by providing resources, support, knowledge, and opportunities. You ensure that while our correspondents fulfill their duties for global audiences, they have the means to facilitate, advance, and expand their work in a safe environment. We want to express our heartfelt appreciation for the numerous partners, supporters, and sponsors whose partnership and alliance with us helps to foster a stronger, more dynamic, and fearless community of journalists, both working in the United States as correspondents for global media. These esteemed partners include the Knight Foundation, Bloomberg Philanthropies, Dow Jones, NASDAQ, Procter & Gamble, IBM, the Rockefeller Foundation, Yahoo, NBC Universal, the Levinson Group, S&P Global, MT Newswires, Delta Airline, Fox News Media, Toyota, the Julia Ann Wrigley Global Future Laboratory from Arizona State University, General Motors, ABC, Volkswagen, Rudaw Media Network, the Next Solutions Group, the Heinrich Foundation, Microsoft, Liber Philanthropies, and the Global Situation Room. We also want to extend a very special thanks for two of our board members, Mitzi Perdue and Julia Hart. Julia got stuck in New York and was unable to make it, so on her behalf, I want to welcome you as well. But we want to thank them for their unwavering commitment and generous contributions, both monetarily and non-monetary, to the association. Additionally, we are deeply grateful to our board member, Nicola Hewitt, for her support tonight and her ongoing dedication to the association. Thank you for your invaluable contribution to our shared mission. On your seats, you will find the annual Foreign Press Awards booklet, which is printed and distributed each year to our community of foreign correspondents. In this booklet, we are delighted to share the profiles of our annual awardees, as well as messages from our valued partners and sponsors. These messages serve as a source of encouragement for the work of our community, and we sincerely thank them for their contributions. Additionally, on your seat, you will also find the first copy of the handbook, quote, Being a Correspondent, Thoughts, Reflections, Experiences, quote, a book written by our own executive director, Thanos Dimatis. Thanos brings many years of experience as a foreign correspondent in the United States and Europe. This handbook, published by the Association of Foreign Press Correspondents, is being distributed to journalist schools across the U.S. to serve as a guidance tool for aspiring correspondents, offering insight into what it takes to become a correspondent and excel with this profession. With these words, I'm pleased to turn the program back over to our board member and tonight's mistress of ceremony, Cecil McCarthy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Tonight we gather to celebrate the incredible work of our Foreign Press Award honorees and our scholarship winners, but also to honor the journalists who have made extraordinary sacrifices for simply reporting timely and factual news to the public. I ask you all to take a moment to reflect on the names in our program, it's on page 4, of the journalists who've been killed over the last 2 years. This has been one of the most deadly periods in history for journalists around the world. A core part of the AFPC's mission is to raise awareness of their sacrifices, demand accountability for their deaths, and advocate for the safety of journalists everywhere, no matter where they report from. As this death toll for journalists grows, so too do new threats to press freedom. At this event last year, it was the first anniversary of ChatGPT, if you remember, and all the talk was about AI's impact on our information ecosystem. While AI has indeed generated vast amounts of misinformation, fears of deepfakes disrupting global elections and the internet drowning in falsehoods were fortunately overstated, for now at least. Today, the challenges we face seem far more tangible and insidious. Democracy is eroding around the world. Just look at the, albeit brief, declaration of martial law in South Korea yesterday. The rise of authoritarianism is undeniable, and its methods disturbingly familiar. We know the playbook. Number 1, discredit journalists. Number 2, call fact-based reporting fake news. Then spread propaganda through complicit media outlets and social media platforms, ultimately stamp out an independent press. But the press has its own playbook, a proven one, a powerful one to counter these tactics and reclaim the Fourth Estate's role as a public servant. It begins with reporting truthfully on the news of the day without fear or favor. It includes watchdog reporting and holding power to account through relentless investigative journalism. It means refusing to amplify government propaganda and falsehoods, resisting self-censorship, and perhaps most importantly, being prepared to defend the truth. This is how the news industry wins back the public's trust, and this is how journalism regains its rightful role as a guardian of democracy. But make no mistake, this will not be easy, because press freedom is under attack, here and abroad. And once again, journalists are on the front lines. As Axios CEO Jim Vandehei said in this very building just a few weeks ago, as he accepted the National Press Club's Fourth Estate Award, the historic war for truth is just beginning. I'm honored to be part of an organization that recognizes the stakes, champions journalism's bedrock principles, and celebrates those who embody them. Through the Foreign Press Awards, we show our appreciation for the remarkable work and achievement of our honorees. And through our scholarships, we invest in the next generation of newsroom leaders. I want to thank you, the audience, for being here tonight to pay tribute to all these journalists, for their courage, their resilience, and their unwavering dedication to the pursuit of truth. So let's get this celebration of all things journalism started. And to do that, I'm honored to invite Ryan Roberts to the stage. As director of the State Department's Foreign Press Centers in Washington and New York, Ryan plays a pivotal role in supporting foreign correspondents in the United States and advancing reporting that is accurate, balanced, and insightful. Ryan?
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be here this evening. I promise to just take 45 seconds to express how grateful we are to be in this room with this group. You know, the Foreign Press Center has existed since the 1960s. We're part of the U.S. State Department, and we have a mission to help foreign correspondents who are in this country to better understand the policies, the nuance, the background, and the culture and society that they are working in. And it's an honor every day to work with those journalists. I am not a journalist myself, but I have such deep regard for the truth-telling, the difficult work, and the very challenging circumstances that journalists around the world work in. If you are a foreign journalist, and I said this last year as well, if you are a foreign journalist and you are not credentialed with the Foreign Press Centers, please come and see me after this. We'd love to talk to you about our free credential that helps you in the work that you do. Thank you and congratulations to the awardees this evening. The work that you do keeps us honest and makes us all safer and more secure. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Ryan, for being with us tonight, and on behalf of the State Department's Foreign Press Centers. We look forward to working with you and all the officers here in DC and New York to serve and equip international correspondents with all the tools and the knowledge that they need to pursue their reporting. And now I have the pleasure of introducing Rasan Johnson, Managing Director of Global Communications for Delta Airlines. Rasan.
Good evening. I didn't realize I would be up here so early, so I actually need to look at my notes because I didn't get a chance to practice. So good evening again. I promised Thanos I would keep it to 2 minutes. So I was thinking on the airplane here, I flew in from Chicago this afternoon, what would I say in 2 minutes' time? And I started thinking about mission. And I said, so at Delta, and I promise this is not an advertisement I'm about to give you, but at Delta, we talk about a mission being no one better connects the world. And I thought about that, and I said, okay, and a global airline connects people to places, to locations, to opportunities, to other people, to experiences, and connects people to opportunities to sort of be their best selves. That's ultimately what travel is about. And I think that's also what good journalism is about, right? It's about connecting people to facts, to truth, to understanding. There's a parallel between what this airline that flies around the world does and ultimately I think what journalists do. And believe me, I'm not comparing sort of flying airplanes to Paris to working in a war zone. But I think the outcomes of what an airline does and what journalists do have so much in common. Travel educates and informs. Journalism educates and informs. Travel brings people together and fosters understanding. Good journalism brings people together and fosters understanding. Travel creates community among people who may have everything in common or absolutely nothing in common. And good journalism brings people together when they have everything in common or absolutely nothing in common. So with that, on behalf of my colleagues, thank you all for what you do. Thank you all for bringing people together, holding truth to power, and creating community around the world and helping people to be their best selves. With that said, I think, I'm looking for Thanos to wave at me, I am supposed to make an introduction. Someone tell me if that's true or not. Okay, correct. All right, so with that, Nancy, I promise Thanos did tell me exactly what to do, and I'm just off script a little bit. So we are presenting an award at this point. The Professional Excellence Award to a correspondent who we all know very well and watch. Chief National Security Correspondent for Fox News. She reports daily from the Pentagon, where she questions senior military leaders, travels to war zones, provides extensive coverage of the wars in Israel and Ukraine, and again, brings people together when they may have nothing in common or everything in common. Jennifer Griffin.
Very kind. Oh. Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you so much. It's such an honor for me to be recognized by a group that loves foreign correspondence as much as I do. My happiest days were serving as a foreign correspondent with my husband, Greg Myrie, who's here. He works for NPR, but we were overseas for about 20 years covering stories together. And in fact, the series of stories that we are winning the award for tonight is about Afghanistan. And Greg and I first went to Afghanistan in 1994. In fact, we had our honeymoon in Kabul. So we've had a very long relationship and important relationship to Afghanistan. And you know, television is about team. You never do a story alone. And I have one of the best teams in the business. I have a wonderful producer, Liz Friedman, a producer extraordinaire at the Pentagon, and Krista Garvin. They brought me this story, and it's a story that I'll tell you a little bit about. Abdul Wasi Safi was an Afghan commando who had been highly trained, worked with the Green Berets in Afghanistan, and had fought to the bitter end against the Taliban. His brother had been a translator, a special immigrant visa holder who moved to Houston. And when Kabul fell, Abdul Wasi Safi was one of the many people who had worked with the US government who was left behind. And he fought to the end, and he thought, okay, now I'm gonna go to America. So what did he do? He managed to make his way to Brazil, and he walked and took buses and made his way through 10 countries from Brazil all the way to the Rio Grande. And he got to the Rio Grande after a harrowing journey. He'd been beaten, he'd been robbed, suspected of being a terrorist along the way. He makes it across the river, and he puts his hands up, and he thinks, oh, they're gonna welcome me as a hero. I'm here, I'm in America. And instead, he gets handcuffed, and he gets taken to a detention center. And that's when Krista and Liz found out about his story, and he was being mistreated. He had medical needs that weren't being attended to, and we talked to his brother Sammy, and we started to tell his story, and we brought together a couple of a very unlikely group of bipartisan congressional leaders, the late Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas, and Michael Waltz and Dan Crenshaw. You wouldn't think they'd have a lot in common, but they jumped on this story. They lobbied the White House, the DHS, and after 5 months, Abdul Wasi Safi was freed as a result of this series of stories. And it really reminds us all, those who think that AI can replace reporters or replace journalists, these are the kind of human stories that AI can't tell. And I want to shout out to the, thank you. AI is never going to be able to tell Abdul Wasi Safi's story and get the results that we did. He is now free and in the United States and driving an Uber and making the beginning of his life, as many do. But I just want to say that there also are local journalists who need to be protected. And the reporters at the Texas Tribune were the first to report on Wasi's story. And I think we all recognize that we need local reporters. I want to thank my bosses, Jay Wallace, Brian Boughton, Nunu Jeffries, who are here tonight. Thank you for letting me tell these stories. These are important stories, and I have your backing, and it means so much to me. I think, I spent 7 years covering the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. My 2 daughters were born in Jerusalem, and I think often of the Hebrew saying, save a life and you save the world. And that's what we do when we tell stories. I spoke to Sami and Abdulwasi Safi. I called them before Thanksgiving to see how they were doing, and they were so very grateful. They were grateful to all the journalists who have told the stories of Afghanistan, and they begged me to plead with journalists not to forget about Afghanistan. So thank you for this award. I dedicate it to all the foreign correspondents who are out there on the front lines telling these important stories. Thank you.
Congratulations, Jennifer, and thank you for sharing that story about Safi. Next up, we have Terry Moran, Senior National Correspondent at ABC News, to present our next Professional Excellence Award. Terry.
Well, thank you very much. It's a real pleasure and an honor to be with you here tonight. When I went through the program, I'm thinking, well, I'm out of my league, for real. The people whose work I've known and admired for years, and those I'm eager to hear about tonight. All your awardees are obviously very, very special, and I'm pleased and really honored to be here. We talk a lot these days, and must, about what's going on in journalism, what's going on in our business, and I don't really want to do that. I'm kind of done with it. And I'll also be 65 next week, so it's not my problem. But I want to talk about something else very briefly, I promise, and that's talk about us, about people who've done this work, people who are doing this work, people who you recognize tonight, and ask why. Why do they do it? Well, why do we do it? And I'm sure there's as many different answers as there are people who do it. But I'll offer a little insight from my brief time formally in your company as a foreign correspondent. I spent the years 2013, 2018 as ABC's chief foreign correspondent. The first guy I ever worked for, he said he thought there should be only 2 titles at every news organization, editor and reporters. But then he realized he had to pay people differently and all the rest of it. But I was the chief international correspondent for 5 years, and it was great. It was amazing, right? It's incredible work. There's a mission in it, and it felt to me often, no matter what story I was doing, that whether it was in Syria or at a disaster area or at a royal event or whatever, the election of a pope, all things that I was lucky and privileged to cover, I felt often like every cell in my body, every nerve ending, every capacity I had, every passion that I might have was switched on to the highest pitch of intensity, because that's what the calling is, it seems to me. And there's something really special about that feeling, that sense of mission. I'm remembering Peter Jennings at this moment, who did this work for a long time and never left it behind. He spent something like 11 years or more in the Middle East, in an eventful time, as all times are in the Middle East. And I think he had the time of his life there as well, because I was over there with him a couple of times when he went back. And I always thought, a lot of people were used to seeing Peter Jennings, not the younger generation, of course, but, behind the anchor desk, being the anchor man. An anchor is something you throw off the side of a boat, is what I like to say. But it's a joke, which I don't think Peter would laugh at. But I remember thinking, Peter, he was the kind of reporter, as so many who do this work are, who you could just pick up and put anywhere on the planet and put a camera on him, and you'd get great journalism. You'd get great storytelling, because he was a curious man. He was a passionate man. That's what made him tick. He was always wanting to walk down around the next bend, or talk to the next person whom he met. overseas. And it lit him up in that special way. And I will tell you, the one piece of advice that Peter Jennings gave me, he said shortly after I joined ABC News and was filing for his program a little bit, he said, you know, Terry, when you're doing a live shot, he said, you should always leave the audience wanting to hear a little bit more from you. You should always leave a little bit on the table. And I've never taken that advice, but it was good advice. So why? For the awardees here, for those who've done this work, why do we do it? And as I say, there are as many different answers as there are people who do it. Each person who has worked overseas and taken that step, that difficult step sometimes. It's hard on the family, for sure. My wife used to say that it was like being married to both a doctor and a traveling salesman, because the doctor phone could ring in the middle of the night, and you'd be gone, but you wouldn't come home in the morning. It'd be like traveling salesman. It'd be 3 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever, 10 days, 3 days, whatever. It was never a set schedule. And it's far away from home. When I asked to come back to the United States, James Goldson, who was running ABC News then, I said, I think it's time for us to come home. He said, you don't feel at home over there. And I hadn't thought of that. I kind of felt like the mission was not to feel at home, but other people are over there for decades and do great work. And I think that the why of it for me was that sense of mission, right? That every job on some days is just a job. But in this one, you get to work and have meaning attached to what you do. And that's so rare for so many people. And the page in this program of all the people who we've lost in this work shows the stakes and also why it's so needed, because they're going where other people won't. And the last why has to do with that. Greater love. I mean, in a sense, it is about love. It's an awkward thing to say in front of a bunch of people, but that old brotherhood of man thing. And I think that at its best, every job is just a job on some days. But at its best, that's what it's about. And it reminded me, and that's what I'm going to close with, the lines of W.H. Auden, which he wrote on September 1st, 1939, at the beginning of another war, another dark time. And he said, defenseless under the night, our world in stupor lies. Yet dotted everywhere, ironic points of light shine out wherever the just exchange their messages. May I, composed like them of arrows and of dust, beleaguered by the same negation and despair, show an affirming flame. I'd like to hold in our hearts tonight all those, as Jennifer mentioned, who are overseas right now, far away from home in dark and dangerous places people don't want to go to, places people are trying to get out of, to shine the light of truth on those places, the truth that at the end of the day we're told might set us free. So thank you for that, and I'm going to introduce Stephanie Ochoa, who is, there we go. I'm going to read what I've got here. What a lovely, Stephanie, I'm proud to see you and proud to know you. And you've been around the world, I know, and reported in Spain, in the United States, and Mexico,
Yes.
and now you are the Washington correspondent for Entravision.
Right.
And this is for you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And this is mine.
That's yours.
Thank you so much. Good night, everybody. I am so thankful for the support that I've found in the association since I joined a couple of years ago. I'm born and raised in Mexico City. I moved to the city in 2020, right when the pandemic just started. So I never got to know DC before it, but I love it, and I really want to stay here for a little bit more time. This award is very meaningful to me, not only because it recognizes my work, but also because it represents the crucial role we play in times of change, especially as a Mexican immigrant. And our communities need our reporting more than ever, so I'm so happy to be here. I feel honored, and just looking around and seeing all these people with that experience is just very inspiring. This is the first time that I definitely decide to stay in a city for more than a year. I did it in Spain, but this is completely different. So even my English, right? When I moved to the city, I didn't know how to speak English. So it was hard for me to even go to the groceries and, start talking to people. And some people yelling at me, and I was like, okay, well, I don't care because I don't know how to speak, but I need to find my way to do it. And here I am. So this is very, very, very great to me, and I feel honored to be here. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Terry, and congratulations, Stephanie. I'd like now to introduce Amanda Ellis, the former UN ambassador and current senior director of global partnerships for the Julianne Wrigley Global Futures Laboratory at Arizona State University, to present our next Professional Excellence Award.
Enga mana, enga reo, enga rangatiratanga. I salute you all as leaders and commend those of you who are on the front lines of excellence in journalism. Thank you so much. I have spoken in Maori, which is the indigenous language of Aotearoa, New Zealand, my birth island. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. And that greeting is said traditionally 3 times because the ancestors are always with us. For those of us present in the room tonight, and for future generations, most importantly, given I have the honor of presenting 2 prizes for excellence in climate journalism. In an increasingly fractured world, journalism is absolutely essential to safeguarding democracy by providing reliable and accurate information. And the work of foreign correspondents is especially critical as they navigate complex issues like climate change and the proliferation of mis- and disinformation that we have seen, unfortunately, increasingly on the rise. I'm very proud to work with a visionary philanthropist, Julianne Wrigley, who founded the world's first School of Sustainability and the first Global Institute of Sustainability some 20 years ago. And interestingly, Arizona State University, where she has these endowments, is #1 in innovation, ahead of Stanford and MIT for the last 10 years, and also has the Cronkite School of Journalism, which is #1 in broadcast news. So I'm feeling very proud to be here with this kind of legacy. Also, Michael Crow, our university president, has just been named the first ever university president to be listed in the Time Top 100 Climate Leaders. So it's now my very great privilege to ask Somini Sengupta to come to the stage to accept this award. She has a remarkable career and has been doing work all over the planet. You will see her bio in your programs. And Somini, such an honor to be here tonight to present you with this award.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much for that kind introduction, and thank you for really just this is a very humbling moment to be recognized by you all for our efforts to tell the stories of what is perhaps one of the most profound existential challenges of our time, and for telling the stories of people around the world who are the most vulnerable to it. My work could not be possible without my editor, who came up here from New York, Jessie Pesta. So thank you to Jessie. I love this kind of spirit of solidarity that I'm feeling in this room, and the way that we're lifting each other up for the work that we do. But the journalists in the room, we know that most days are really not like this. We know that most days, many days, we are, surviving on caffeine and very bad processed foods. Many days are really dark when we are bearing witness to just human suffering, endless human suffering. There are many days when we are being attacked for just doing what we do, when we're being trolled online, when our families are feeling threatened. And for those days, which there will be more of in many of our countries, for those days, please remember this vibe, the spirit of solidarity. And please remember that what we do is not really to win prizes at all. What we do is to be the guardians of the public commons. And that is our mission. So please keep doing what you're doing, and thank you. Thank you again.
So beautifully said, guardians of the public commons. And as an economist, I especially resonate with that, given the tragedy of the commons. So I'm now delighted to give a second and final award for excellence in climate journalism to Andrew Friedman, who is the senior climate reporter for Axios. Andrew has an illustrious history also. He is currently the author of the daily Axios Generate newsletter, and he covers climate science and policy, extreme weather, and the energy transition. Previously, he served as science editor at Axios, deputy weather editor for the Washington Post, and senior editor for Mashable. Congratulations, Andrew, and I hope you're here. I haven't had the privilege of meeting you yet. Oh, fantastic.
Thank you. This is quite humbling, and it's very rare and nice to be among such a crowd and to have the dedication that you have to recognizing climate journalism, which is not easy on a day-to-day basis, which I realized when I was assigned a story on climate anxiety as a growing recognized disorder, and I called a psychologist who specializes in it, and her first question, normally I don't get a question to me first, her first question was, "How are you doing?" And I paused, and I said, "I've never imagined doing anything else or covering any other beat. I was a weather geek since birth, into politics and into writing, and this kind of unites them all. But yeah." I'm truly humbled to be here and grateful to consider all of you my colleagues. We each share the conviction that journalism is vital work now more than ever. Being from Axios, I feel a need to really call out Elon Musk and X, which my CEO did last week. I'm not going to do that. I haven't prepared all of my personal information and gotten that off the internet and prepared my wife to flee. We face extremely challenging times ahead in covering climate. I'm constantly reminded, though, how much innovation, how much determination, and strangely, how much hope there is to getting us from a potentially cataclysmic future onto something at least more manageable for many. I'd like to thank Axios for being committed to climate and energy coverage since day one, and my editors there, including Eileen, who has improved many of my stories, for making me a better reporter. I know my fellow honorees are doing similar work on their beats in connecting the dots that need to be connected now more than ever, and I will do my best to continue to do so as well. Thank you.
Wonderful work. And I wanted to finish with a special thank you to Thanos and his team at the Association of Foreign Press Correspondents, and to put in a plug for a partnership that we have on climate training for journalists that complements the work that we do with parliamentarians. And I'm delighted that Kofi Tseka is here from the World Bank. Wave, please, Kofi. So a huge thank you to the work that the association does in really innovative partnerships, and we hope that all of you will take advantage of that training. So to everyone in this room who has dedicated their careers to forward this vital work, thank you so much. And we at the Julianne Wrigley Global Futures Laboratory at ASU stand ready to support you and to further partner with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amanda, and congratulations, Somini and Andrew. Zachary Reed, the Senior Manager for Government Affairs at Toyota, will present our next professional award. Zachary.
All right, good evening. Thank you. It's so good to be here. Thank you, Thanos, for having us. And it's a pleasure to be a part of this evening. Thanos just said, he said, oh, you don't need to read your script, but my boss wrote this. So if it gets back to him that I did not read the words that he sent me, I'll be in trouble. So, but I'm a member of Toyota's corporate communications team. And it is our job at Toyota to work with journalists to tell our company's stories, to inform, to engage, and at times entertain our key stakeholders. In our business, we continue to see the importance of factual, non-biased information, but unfortunately too often, we see misleading or downright false information being disseminated. We, as communication professionals on this side, must do our part to ensure journalistic integrity, a balanced approach, and that the truth is not forgotten or ignored. On behalf of Toyota Motor North America, I'd like to extend my congratulations to all of our Professional Excellence Award winners and to all the recipients this year. We're counting on you to continue the tradition, to uphold the traditions, values, and integrity of the Foreign Press Correspondents. So I am honored to present the Professional Excellence Award to Diyar Kurda. Diyar, please come up. Over there. Oh, thank you so much. Diyar is a Kurdish journalist and Washington, D.C. bureau chief for Rudaw Media Network, one of the leading media outlets in the Middle East. He covers the White House, State Department, and Pentagon. Congratulations, Diyar.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much, Zach. Good evening. Thanos told me I have only 1.5 minutes to say whatever I want to say here, but it took 1.5 minutes when I reached to here. So I'm trying to cheat and borrow you some extra minutes and to say what I need to say here. It's an honor and pleasure to be here in the room with you and with the very well respected and talented journalists here. I feel so humble and honored to be recognized by Foreign Correspondent Association in USA and you. When I was discussing with my speechwriter, I'm joking, she was advising me to tell you some funny stories of myself doing journalism here in Washington, D.C. But as I said, I have very limited time. I should tell you stories and points that very touched to my heart. I'm representing Middle East, and we've seen what happened in Middle East. This year, journalists from Middle East, they risked their lives, and they went to the war zones to uncover the truth and telling us untold stories under the debris of destroyed buildings. I'm mentioning this because I have a personal stories, and I'm very touched to it. Back in the winter 2017, I was sitting in the evening in my newsroom with my colleague Shifa Gardi, and we were talking about covering ISIS. And the day after, Shifa went to Mosul, and she was covering the stories in Mosul, and I was harmed when I saw the breaking news on Rudaw and said Shifa killed in a roadside bomb that planted by ISIS. I never forget that, and I have to dedicate myself to fight for journalism, to fight for journalists in Middle East and everywhere. So I try to use one more minute to thank my friends, my colleagues. Some of them come all along from Kurdistan to here, and to my colleagues, and table number 23. It's very back there. And also I want to thank Alex, he's not here. What he say, he's my brother from another mother, but he got COVID. So I wish him very soon recovery. And last, I want to thank Kagako, my CEO. I'm not flattering, and I don't need him to raise my paycheck, but he's the one who has a real vision to change journalism in Kurdistan region and in Iraq. You who have covered Iraq and Middle East, being journalists and covering there, it's not an easy job, because there is a lot of pressure on you from the government, from the militia groups, and from everyone, and you are not allowed to say anything that you want to say. You have to be so brave, you have to risk your life, and sometimes you lose your beloved ones just to be a journalist. So I want to pass my due regards to them and to all journalists that are covering Middle East and they are doing journalism in Middle East. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zachary, and once again, congratulations, Diyar. It's now time to hear from Josh Goldstein, Director of Media and Policy Communications at S&P Global. Josh, come on up. Is he there?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. What a moving and powerful evening this has been so far. I'm Josh Goldstein. I'm the Director of Communications for S&P Global, and it's an honor to be here with you all tonight. Now, while some of you may not be familiar with our company, we are one of the world's leading providers of credit ratings, benchmarks, analytics, and workflow solutions. And it's likely that the majority of you use most of our well-known products, such as the S&P 500, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and more. And like all of those, our offerings play a key role in powering the global markets. But at the core of what we do is data, analysis, and insights. And with that, it's been our commitment to accuracy and integrity that has driven our success for more than 160 years. And as journalists, you know the importance of this as well. The stories you write inform people and shape their views on the world. And likewise, It's your accuracy and your integrity that are paramount to your success. This is why S&P Global has been a proud partner of the Association of Foreign Press Correspondents for several years, and it's truly an honor to present the next award for professional excellence. David Cho is the editor of Barron's and head of editorial content for Dow Jones Wealth and Investing. Previously, he was the business editor of the Washington Post, where he worked for 20 years, and in 2014 was a member of the Washington Post team that won the Pulitzer Prize for Public Service for its reporting on the Snowden documents. Please join me in welcoming David to the stage for this well-deserved recognition. David.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. And Tamarin, thanks for your words earlier. That really struck a chord with me, asking the why. For me, it's been getting the scoop or exclusive that nobody else had, whether that was something about the Snowden documents or that Lehman Brothers was collapsing. I think the thrill of putting out information that nobody else had has probably driven me for 30 years now, whether as a reporter or an editor. But Terry, thanks for your words. That was great. You know, I wasn't always in journalism. I started as a pianist at the Juilliard School of Music many decades ago. There are no pianos here, so I'm safe. But as soon as I got there, I realized there's probably no future in classical music. So instead, I switched to newspapers. So I'm really not here to give anybody career advice. But I am here actually to thank my colleagues here at Dow Jones, taking over Barron's and transforming it from a print magazine to this thriving digital publication. It's really been the thrill of my career to this point. The team is so great. Just to see Barron's growing so fast these past couple of years. Thank you for my colleagues over at Table 7. You know, I work for a boss, Almar Latour, who's the CEO of Dow Jones. I gotta say, it's incredible to work for a CEO who is a journalist too. And you know, when we talk, he just loves the story. He wants Barron's to be right. He invests in the newsroom. It's great to be part of that, to be part of a company that's just growing overall. You know, I watched him and his team just go to the mattresses to rescue Evan Guskovich from a Russian prison. He was there for almost 500 days. And just to see the whole company move to free him was invigorating to all of us. You kind of sense Dow Jones's commitment to journalists and to journalism, no matter how dangerous it is, and that they would go that far to protect us. It was really inspiring to all of us and invigorate us across our newsrooms there. So I just want to thank Dow Jones for that. And also thank Thanos, and who has the most interesting name tonight of anybody here, and the AFPC for all that you're doing for journalists around the world. I started my career in foreign journalism, and I fell in love with it then. And to see what you guys are doing for journalists around the world has been an inspiration. So thank you for this award, and thank you for all that you're doing.
Congratulations, David, and I'm sure there is a piano somewhere in the building. And now for our last Professional Excellence Award, we have Mark Gillis from Volkswagen to introduce an international journalist whose professional accomplishments have distinguished him and earned him our final prize of Professional Excellence for 2024.
Evening, everyone. I'm delighted to be here to present the Professional Excellence Award tonight on behalf of Volkswagen of America. Before I joined VW and jumped to the dark side, I was actually one of you. I was a journalist, but I'm kind of hesitant to mention that in this exalted company because I wrote about cars for a living, and essentially the only flack I ever had to dodge was from PR people whining about, you know, stories I'd written on their cars or companies. I actually once put a lemon with a VW badge on the front cover of Car magazine in England. So it's ironic that I'm now at Volkswagen. I don't think anybody in the building knows that. Anyway, deep down, I'm still a journalist at heart, and when my colleagues get a bit grumpy when a journalist is asking tough questions, either of us or our executives, I like to remind them that a journalist's job is to ask tough questions. It's to ask tough questions and speak truth to power. And at this precise moment in time, we really need you to ask a lot of tough questions and speak a lot of truth to power. With that, I'd like to ask Benjamin Daniel to come on stage and accept the award. Benjamin's an award-winning TV reporter from Germany. And since 2021, he's been stationed in DC as the Central and North American correspondent for the ZDF TV network in Germany. I can't believe I just said Z instead of Z. Been here too long.
Thank you so much. I think many very smart and also touching words have been said already, so I will make it very short. It was always my dream to become a Washington correspondent. From the first day on, I started with my journalism career. I know that sounds a little dramatic, but it's the truth. And yeah, so here I am. And now I'm also being recognized with this award, and that makes me very humble and grateful. So thank you very much for this award. It really means the world to me. Thank you so much.
And congratulations to all 7 of the journalists who have won our professional prizes for excellence in 2024. They are once again Stephanie Ochoa, David Cho, Jennifer Griffin, Diyar Kurda, Benjamin Daniel, Andrew Friedman, Somini Sengupta. Let's give them all a round of applause. Now, in addition to the prizes for professional excellence, the AFPC also provides scholarships to international correspondents to help pay for their master's degree in journalism anywhere in the U.S. And this year, we have 4 exceptional scholarship awardees. And for the first award, I'd like to welcome Jim Sciutto, anchor and chief national security analyst at CNN. Jim.
It's so nice to be surrounded by foreign correspondents because though I've been based in DC for 10 years, after about 20 years traipsing around the world, I still consider myself a foreign correspondent, a DC-based foreign correspondent who was the first person to call my bosses like a Sam Feist, say, or a Kathy O'Hearn when I was at ABC, to go out the door when things go boom. So I always feel comfortable here, and it's also nice to see so many friends who I've worked with, not just here in the US, but at all the stories we cover overseas through the years. I have the privilege of giving an award tonight to a student who is from a country, Hungary in this case, that is facing one of the most insidious ways that authoritarian regimes around the world, but also other governments, are using to try to squeeze what we do, to intimidate us in what we do, and stop us from reporting the facts as best we can. Of course, what we've observed going on in Hungary is an attempt to stifle the press by buying pieces of it, putting them in the hands of people friendly to the government, which sadly is a tactic that is certainly not confined to Hungary and certainly not even confined to authoritarian countries these days, with the intent, of course, of reducing independent journalists and independent news organizations, and therefore reducing critical coverage and accountability and the asking of hard questions and the reporting of hard truths. So I feel particularly privileged presenting an award to a young journalist who is among those, and many others in this room, standing up to that particular tactic. But as you know, there are others, some more violent. As I ran into Yegi and Jason as I walked into this room, we know the tactic of arrest as a means of intimidation, or you were telling the story of Evan. I did a little count of the number of journalists currently arrested in countries that I've spent a good deal of time in. China, for instance, 44, Russia 22, Iran, again, Jason, I don't have to tell you this, 17, even Israel, where I've spent a number of weeks just in the last several months covering the latest outbreak of violence, 17 journalists held there. So you have attempts to limit the number of independent outlets, quite successful. You have arrests. Sometimes you have worse violence, sadly. But you also have this more insidious one that one of the earlier speakers was talking about, which is just the proliferation of disinformation. And this is one thing that I say, that as an American, we used to cover these stories as distant stories, as foreign stories, right? But the sad fact is, today, these are domestic stories for us as well. Perhaps not quite arrests yet, although the new designee FBI director has discussed exactly that publicly, but certainly disinformation. And I say to folks that when I covered the 2016 Russian interference in the US election, that was a case primarily of foreign actors interfering in the US electoral process via disinformation. But in the years since then, many of the primary sources of disinformation have become domestic. So, again, as a longtime foreign correspondent, now based in the US, and still covering foreign stories, but also covering stories in my own country, I find that I'm covering things that I thought were confined to there, right? In a China or in a Russia or elsewhere, but we face here as well, very much as well. And listen, if there's a silver lining to it, we already had tremendous camaraderie among the folks in this room as we worked together covering some of sadly, the most dangerous stories. If there is a silver lining, is that we have a shared mission in this as well, and a shared experience. A sad shared experience, but a shared commitment to stand up to it. And I know I can learn from you as we face similar challenges, and I hope you can learn from us, because we're in it together. And of course, as I see a group of people like this gathered together, it gives me hope, and it gives me even more hope to see young people who are still drawn to the business. So that leads me to Ivan Laszlo Nagy, who is from Hungary, formerly Budapest-based. He now has the honor of being a master's student at the Columbia School of Journalism. He worked for HVG, which was still to this day one of the last independent news outlets in Hungary, which is thankfully still fighting that battle, which is a familiar one for us in this room. So I appreciate the honor of being here among you, my people. I could say to Jennifer and Greg, we did not have our honeymoon overseas, but we did plan our wedding during the 2006 Israel-Lebanon war from different sides of that battle. So as I was covering it again, thinking 18 years ago, how little has changed there, but of course a lot has changed in the meantime. But anyway, it's a pleasure to be among you. A deep honor to award Ivan with the Journalism Scholarship Award. I did pronounce your name right. With a name like Shudo, you take special pride in getting it right. But I appreciate the work you're doing, and thanks so much for staying in the fight.
All right. Thank you, Jim, and congratulations, Yvonne. Next up, we have Eileen O'Connor, a renowned journalist and current Senior Vice President of the Rockefeller Foundation.
Well, thank you, Sissel, and thank you to, it's really an honor to be here before this really esteemed audience of folks that I know from ABC and CNN, and I've worked with both here in the United States and abroad, but also for those young journalists who are here and for those foreign correspondents who many of I haven't met. But the work that you do is so critical, because the work of a foreign correspondent is really about bringing cultures together. It really is, in addition to that critical role of journalists everywhere, to hold people to account. There's a reason that we call this the Fourth Estate. It is a branch of democracy that holds the other branches, particularly in the United States, to account. And as a journalist for many, many years in Russia and covering war zones, I saw the result of places where there was no accountability. There was no independent journalist, and there was no rule of law. And so it's so important and so brave of these foreign correspondents, both abroad but also here in the United States, because what you're doing is connecting cultures. You're connecting people. You're comparing and contrasting your system of government, the way that they operate, and our own. And it's not just saying this country is perfect or that country is perfect. It's actually comparing the pros and cons of each system. And I think that's what the next awardee for the scholarship, Zhen Jiang, has done in his work in both environmental journalism, gender-based journalism, and also health journalism. He looked at thank you so much, Jen, and he looked at the opioid crisis here in the United States, and he compared it and how it happened and what happened and how the United States tried to address it, and in many cases failed to address it. And he started looking at the abuse of prescription drugs in China, which is a problem that's not talked about a lot and is often denied. But it is a problem, particularly in the provinces, as it is here in the United States, particularly in rural areas. It was incredibly brave of him to take this on. He also did a lot of reporting about businesses and markets in China and comparing them as well to other countries. So I think the role of foreign correspondents, particularly the role of those foreign correspondents here in the United States, is that you bring the good and the bad of what we do to the world. We're not perfect, but we are always striving. The United States is always striving. And yes, we may be going through some problems right now, and a lot of it based on the disinformation that people have talked about. And so I would actually not agree with Jim Vanderhei about, who I've known for many years and think he's a great journalist. But I don't think the war on truth is just starting. I know that it has been being raged for years and years. And we are in the middle of it, and everyone in this room has a role to play in fighting that. But in particular, Zhen Jiang, who is going to be studying at NYU, and he's going to be going for a master's in health and environmental science and reporting in journalism. And I'm so proud and honored to be giving you this award and this scholarship.
Thank you so much. Congratulations, Jen. Unfortunately, one of our board members, Julia Hart, couldn't make it, but that means that I get to announce the next award. I'm honored to present this next scholarship award to Chris Carla. Chris is an award-winning multimedia reporter with a focus on social justice issues. He has worked with top media outlets in Italy, Germany, and the US, contributing to international investigative journalism stories that hold power to account. Chris is based in New York, where he's pursuing a master's in arts at Columbia University's Graduate School of Journalism. Congratulations, Chris. And I looked at the applications, and his really stood out, so well deserved. Your award is coming, 1 second. Yes. All right, finally, for our last scholarship winner, I would like to welcome Rosanna Mortoglu, who is the CEO of Libra Philanthropies, a valued partner of the AFPC-USA. Rosanna, please come up. So nice to see you.
Good evening, everyone. It's a great honor to be here representing Libra Philanthropies and our long-standing relationship with the Association of Foreign Press Correspondents. Congratulations to Thanos and the whole AFPC team and board for pulling together such a wonderful evening. Our work at Libra Philanthropies involves working with change makers across the world. We have the privilege to see the world through the eyes of marginalized populations in India or in the US, through the eyes of innovators in Greece and in Nigeria, and fierce, ambitious young leaders from Colombia, Uganda, Japan, Panama, to name a few. Each person's story opens up new channels of deepened empathy and a richer understanding of our cosmos and of humanity. It is why we are so proud to support AFPC's Scholarship Awards, supporting journalists from diverse backgrounds who are broadening our perspectives into new worlds through their inspiring work. In the current state of global affairs, where shifting dynamics and conflicts abide, transparent, diverse, and courageous reporting is a safeguard for democracy and for human rights. I am therefore truly humbled to present one of tonight's awards to Nneka Chile. Nneka is a West African from Nigeria, multimedia journalist and content strategist with experience working on global teams. One of her notable achievements was being a part of Twitter's 2022 Inception team that launched operations in sub-Saharan Africa and defined content strategy for the region. She also served as the deputy lead for Reuters' multimedia desk in West Africa, covering breaking news and elections. Nneka is completing her studies at New York University in a course focusing on digital innovation, audience, and news products. Nneka, please come on stage. Thank you.
All right, now we have a break. You can talk to your table mates, and we'll be back with the final awards right after dinner.